The sound of iron gates slamming echoed across the Thames. It is the autumn of 1558 in London, and a gilded barge carries Elizabeth Tudor toward the Tower. She is a prisoner, but soon she will be queen. Her sister, Queen Mary, is dying, and the great houses of Europe already circle like vultures, their ambassadors pushing marriage proposals from Spain, France, and the Holy Roman Empire. The stakes are brutally simple. Her hand in marriage means the succession of an English crown to a foreign Catholic power, or perhaps civil war if she marries a controversial Englishman. Her every breath, her every refusal, her every glance is an act of statecraft, weighed by men with cold steel beneath their cloaks. Her symbolic motif, passed down from her mother, Anne Boleyn, is the falcon, a bird of prey, powerful but leashed. Why did she choose to endure 4 decades of political isolation? And what was the true, horrific price paid for her solitary reign? Her refusal to take a husband was an act of survival, not romance. If you enjoy these dark histories, leave a like and subscribe and comment below where you're listening from. And now, back to the story. The crown was hers, but her body was still the property of the state. The moment Elizabeth ascended, she began a new captivity, shifting from the stone walls of the Tower to the gilded cage of Westminster, where the pressure to breed an heir, to end the deadly uncertainty of the succession crisis, was unrelenting. Every embassy that arrived in London was a siege engine. The first move of institutional control came from the Privy Council, dominated by men who saw the Queen not as a sovereign, but as the necessary vessel for a male heir. They sought to rename her from Virgin, a title she would soon embrace, albeit cynically, to wife, an urgent national duty. They drew up treaties complete with clauses dictating the religious education of the future King of England. She was a woman drowning in wax and parchment, every offer a noose woven from legal terms. The list of suitors became a register of Europe's dynastic ambitions. Philip II of Spain, the man whose faith would plunge her kingdom into war, the French Duke of Anjou, nearly half her age, and the English contender, Robert Dudley, the Intimate, whose very proximity threatened to trigger a coup. Elizabeth's quiet will to resist surfaced in her correspondence. She used the Latin word cunctando, delaying, as her primary weapon. She never refused outright. She simply required more information, more assurances, more time. She turned her royal progresses into subtle acts of evasion, using the constant movement across the shires to distance herself from the clamor of the court. She played the hopeful bride-to-be, allowing the ambassadors to spend fortunes on gifts and retinues, knowing all along the marriage would never take place. This theatrical performance was exhausting, a daily drain of diplomatic energy and nerve. The offered mercy was the promise of a powerful alliance, a ready-made army, and the guarantee of a peaceful transition upon her death. The hidden price was the sacrifice of her independence, her Protestant religion, and, ultimately, the soul of her kingdom. She watched the Falcon on her personal standard, a symbol of freedom, and knew the chain was closing. How much of a nation's safety could one woman's refusal truly buy? The council's pressure mounted, growing more cruel with each passing year, suggesting she was selfish, barren, or even physically unfit. The rumors, spread by Catholic agents, were designed to break her spirit and force her hand. They whispered of inherited disease and a fatal unspoken impediment. Could whispers of inherited sickness be a political tool to enforce compliance? The test was delivered annually, often in the cold, unyielding language of Parliament. Elizabeth was repeatedly presented with petitions demanding she marry and secure the Protestant line. The condition was always stated openly: convert your uncertainty into certainty, comply with the national need for an heir, or vanish into the political irrelevance of an unmanaged succession, bringing the full measure of European suffering back to England. The pressure reached its apex in 1579 during the negotiations with the Duke of Anjou. The parliamentarians and the Privy Council believed they had her cornered, citing historical precedent and the dangers of a papist-backed claimant like Mary, Queen of Scots. Elizabeth's single cold refusal line, delivered to the parliamentary delegation, cut through the noise of years of debate: "I will have no master." It was not a roar of defiance, but a quiet, implacable finality that chilled the room. The escalation began as soft pressure, constant urgent reminders of her mortality and the fragility of the peace. It descended into deprivation, the willful withholding of funds by a parliament increasingly frustrated by her evasion, forcing her to rely on loans and private means. Finally, it became a deliberate silence, the chilling realization that the Queen, by choosing solitude, was isolating herself from the very men sworn to protect her. She had to govern not through consensus, but through the delicate manipulation of their competing ambitions. What was meant to break her, the discipline of constant scrutiny, the need for flawless self-control, the lifelong vow of political celibacy, became her armor. She inverted the meaning of the pressure. Her virginity, initially a vulnerability, became the central pillar of a new cult of monarchy. She was no longer just Elizabeth Tudor, but Gloriana, the Virgo Invicta, the Maiden Queen, married only to her people. This inversion resolved the core why. Elizabeth never married because the price of any single suitor was too high. To marry Philip II meant a Catholic restoration. To marry a French prince meant foreign domination. To marry Dudley meant a bloody civil war sparked by the jealousy of the entrenched nobility. The cost of marriage was the annihilation of her fragile religious settlement and the very peace of her realm. The price she paid was the complete and total surrender of her personal life, and any hope of a private, warm succession. She traded happiness for stability. The pressure forced her into a brilliant, brutal calculus. Only by remaining utterly unbound could she keep her suitors balanced against one another, ensuring none grew powerful enough to invade or usurp her. Her greatest weakness became her greatest strength, a shield woven from perpetual diplomatic ambiguity. Could perpetual indecision be the only true engine of long-term stability? The iron control she exerted over her court, banning all discussion of the succession, was the ultimate test of faith she demanded from her subjects. They had to trust her, the unwed woman, to secure the future better than any dynasty. What records of personal despair did the public performance demand she burn? The truth of her choice was hidden not in grand state papers, but in small, intimate details tied directly to the recurring motif: the Falcon. After years of pressure and evasion, Elizabeth allowed her final, decisive refusal to be etched into the fabric of her public persona. The hidden place was her own privy chamber, and the sign was the shift in her royal iconography. She began commissioning portraits, particularly after the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588, that moved far beyond simple likeness. She found a wordless right of memory in her personal library, a place largely unobserved by the clamoring court. Records suggest a small, leather-bound volume, a text on falconry, not for sport, but for metaphor. The training of a falcon, requiring absolute control, hooded deprivation, and the withholding of reward, mirrored her own brutal political training. It was a silent acknowledgement of the cost. She showed that the true Virgin Queen was not a woman untouched, but a person perpetually deprived of choice, whose every impulse was ruthlessly hooded for the good of the realm. The cautious evidence cue comes from the inventory records of the royal wardrobe and the Privy Seal Office. These records, dating primarily from the mid-1590s, show a notable and unusual increase in the depiction of the phoenix, the mythical bird that dies in fire and is reborn from its own ashes, often replacing or accompanying the falcon in jewelry, seals, and tapestries. The hidden truth was that her marriage did occur, but not to a man. It was a symbolic, spiritual, and permanent union with the state of England itself. She had to kill Elizabeth Tudor, the woman with desires and choices, to give birth to Gloriana, the immortal queen. She revealed what was hidden by stating in Parliament that she desired no fairer tomb than to live in your hearts. This was the ultimate exchange. The marriage and the resulting biological succession she refused to provide were replaced by an immortal, conceptual succession, the belief that the stability she created would outlast her bloodline. Her solitude was not a moral triumph, but a political scar, a calculated wound she inflicted on herself to prevent a deeper injury to the kingdom. Her greatest secret was that the virginity she protected was not physical, but her sovereignty. Could a ruler only achieve immortality by refusing a dynasty? The constant pressure on her choice turned her into the subject she governed, cold, practical, and relentlessly focused on sheer survival, even at the cost of every human comfort. Who remembers the person beneath the powdered and painted mask of state? The greatest tragedy of Elizabeth's choice was the deliberate erasure that followed, not by her enemies, but by her successor. James VI of Scotland, who became James IV of England, inherited a peaceful, solvent realm, but one purchased at the cost of a dynasty. His first act of political control involved ensuring that the unique, brutal necessity of Elizabeth's rule was dismissed as mere caprice. The historical record was manipulated subtly. Blank entries appeared where critical decisions had been made regarding specific marriage proposals, leaving behind nothing but the ambiguous date and a withheld ink stroke. The names of those courtiers who had most ardently advocated for her marriage were quickly elevated, their past anxieties over the succession conveniently forgotten. The goal was to prove that James's own claim, based purely on bloodline, was the natural, inevitable end, making Elizabeth's 4 decades of strategic suffering appear merely an unfortunate deviation. Distant witnesses survive only as whispers. The few remaining letters of the European ambassadors mention not the powerful queen, but the cold, pragmatic woman who allowed love to be eclipsed by logistics. They speak of the immense, unsustainable cost of keeping the peace by perpetual political deceit. The exhaustion visible in her aging face, even beneath the legendary white lead and vermilion paint. We return to the opening image, reframed, the gilded barge carrying the young Elizabeth toward the Tower in 1558. It was not a journey to prison, but an entrance into a life of permanent, self-imposed exile from her own body. The final echo is not the sound of iron gates, but the silence that followed her death in 1603. She left no immediate heir to mourn her, only a vast, empty space on the throne, which had been, for 45 years, filled by a political abstraction. Her choice saved England from war, but it ensured the Virgin Queen, the person, would be wholly consumed by Gloriana, the myth. The sickening reason she never married was that the survival of the state depended upon the brutal, total sacrifice of her own blood and potential happiness. The secret, hidden for 400 years, is that she willingly paid it. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like. Does a single nation's peace always require a monarch's single sacrifice?